Okay, in this video what I'm going to show you how to do is to create a collision map for your tile maps. The tile maps that you generally create are graphics tile maps. So we draw different objects at different locations to represent elements of your game, whether that's a maze or background graphics or platforms, etc. Okay, so this is the collision we've got now, but this is simplistic looking. I've only got two main tiles, the wall tile and the floor tile, but you may have several different tiles that look different but all represent walls or all represent floors. So you might have some grass, you might have some mud, you might have stones, they're all floors. And the current collision system that I've shown you involves creating a little routine that lets an object know if a location is a floor tile. Now if you end up with 15 different floor tiles, then the only way you can build it by examining the graphics tiles is to put ORs and put all the different cases that are floors. Now that's just for some basic. If you want to do some more complex collision detection, this can get messy really quick, especially as every time you add a new graphic tile, you'll have to go back and edit all this code. Right? So this isn't a long-term way of doing it, unless you're doing a really simplistic maze and you're not interested in what the graphics look like. Okay, so the process involves creating a collision map, which is sort of a simplified duplicate of the graphics tiles. Now we're going to do this after we've created our tiles. So I've gone to the constructor for my tile map, and you can see I've got my code that's going to create all my graphic tiles and the code that generates any sprites from the tile map. So after that code, so at the end of the constructor, I'm going to create a new method called setup collision map. Doesn't exist, so I'm going to do control full stop while I'm on that line, and then ask it to generate a method. You can see it's generated that just below. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to create a mapping function. So I'm going to say all these graphics tiles are floor tiles, or all these graphics tiles are wall tiles. Okay, so what I'm going to need to do is to create an array that is the same size as the number of tiles I've got. So I'm going to create just an integer array, and it's just a local array, and I'm just going to call this mapper, I'll call it. And we're going to say new int, and then the size of it is going to be my tile list dot count. Okay, so we're building this after we've added all our tiles, because that's what create tiles did up here. So we should know how many tiles we've got. Now by default, when you create an array, it's populated with zeros. So we're gonna we can use numbers, but it's better to use constants because it makes the code more readable. So I'm going to create some constants just here. So I'm going to say constant int, and I'm going to prepend them with lowercase c, so I know it's a collision constant. So I'm going to say walkable equals 0, and for now I'm going to say blocked equals 1. So tile 1 is going to be blocked. So these are not the same numbers as the graphics tiles. They're separate, because I could have loads of those. This is a simplification. Okay, so what we're going to do in this little mapper array is we're going to specify what graphics tiles are blocked or walkable. So by default zeros are in there, so all the walkable ones are done. I've just got to set all the other special tiles up. Okay, so in my tile map at the minute, and I will edit this and add some extras, I've got a wall that is tile 1. So in my mapping array, I'm going to say mapper. Now I'm going to do it like this first, and then I'm going to swap it for constants. So I'm going to say a wall tile is going to be blocked. Okay, so I'm just setting the mapping numbers, and that's going to be used by another part of the tile map code that will create the collision map for me. Now, so I said mapper 1. If I decide to change what a wall tile is represented by, I might use 5 or something, that code's now going to break. So what I'm going to use instead of putting that, I'm going to actually put wall. So I'm going to use the constants I've defined. Okay? It's a good example of where constants make code more readable. So you can see that the mapper is saying a wall is blocked. Let's add another tile. Let's add a tile 2. So I'm going to go down to my tile list. I'm going to add a new tile, and I'm going to make it a grey tile. They don't spell grey properly. I'm using American spelling. So I've got a grey tile. So let's put some on there. Let's replace some of these ones with 3s. So these are going to be a stone wall. So I'm going to create a new graphics constant. So int stone wall equals 3. Okay, so what I need to do is, because I've added a new wall, I'm going to create a new entry in my mapper, and I'm going to say stone wall equals, and I'm just going to say that is blocked. I'm using the picker on the IntelliSense so I don't spell things incorrectly. Okay, so I need to do that. So obviously that's going to be personal to you. So if you've got special tiles, you can say, well, tile 14 is a left-only tile. So you can make one-way things, and I'll show you how to implement things like that in another video. Just have a drink, hang on. Right, okay, so once we've created the mapper, all we've got to do to create the collision map is to actually say to the tile map, is create collision map, and it'll say what mapper are you using, what collision blocks. So I'm just going to say use mapper, because that's my array. You can see that it's helping you in the IntelliSense, and it's saying it's an integer array, and it tells you what it is, a list of collision tiles which map between the graphics tiles and the display ones. And that's it, so that creates the collision map. Now, my collision code has changed, because instead of looking at the graphics tiles, I now need to say, well, I want to look for these walkable tiles in the collision map. So instead of in my clear function saying get graphic, I'm now going to say get collision. So it works exactly the same. You give it a tile location, it says what the collision tile is at that location. So I want to check, as long as it's a walkable tile, so I'm going to say C walkable, then I'm saying it's clear the player can make a move. Okay, so let's just summarise what we did. So we've got our graphics tiles, and I've added some new ones. One of the things that you'll find is that you'll want to make a different graphic for a corner, and there's lots of different types of corners that you want. But you want them all to be walls. So it's that sort of system where you have like 8 different corner tiles, but you want them all to be treated like a wall, like an unmovable location. Okay, so if we just look at that, we then, at the end of the constructor, after we've done all our tile work, we created our tiles, we processed our tiles, we run our collision map code where we just create the mapper array and say like what graphics tiles are special, blocked, and then I just say to the collision map creator, use this list, generate the tiles. So I've got my code now looking at the collision map, not the graphics map, and the graphics map is just really for display purposes. You can do fancy things with it, but that's generally what it's for. It's just to handle the display and scrolling for you, so it's more efficient. Right, so if we run it, we shouldn't need to change anything about the player, which is why we created a function in the tile map, and then we can just do that, and you can see it doesn't go through the grey ones, it doesn't go through the black ones. So if you were doing it another way, what you'd find is that your collision code would start getting more complicated, and we don't want complicated, we want simple. Okay, so the collision map works. So I can add more and more tiles. I'll just add another couple. So let's go back into the tile map. Let's add another couple of collision tiles. Let's have a magenta one and a lime one. Strong colours. So remember that's colour 4 and 5. So that's graphic tile 4 and 5. So let's make some more. So let's have acid pit. is 5 and blancmange, I can't spell blancmange, what's that stuff, candy floss, equals 4. Okay, so I've added 2 more tiles, so I must remember to set up my mapper. So I'm going to say mapper candy floss equals C blocked, but I'm actually going to let you walk on the acid, so I'm going to say mapper acid pick equals walkable. Now it could be that in the future I'll make that damage the player, but I'm going to let them walk on it. Okay, so the green one, if I've got my numbers right, should work. So I haven't got to do any other work, I'm just adding some extra data. So I've not changed really any code. Oh, I need to put something in the tilemap though. So let's put some acid. So I've got acid, which is 5, 5, 5. Let's do a few blocks of it. But I'm going to put a wall around it, so around part of it. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4 of candy floss around the acid. So I can get in it from the top. So let's run it and let's have a look what that looks like. Okay, so there's my, it's a bit violent. Right, so I can't walk through the wall tiles or the stone wall tiles. Can't go through the candy floss because it's gone off the candy floss and gone a bit solid, but I can go onto the acid. Okay, so that's how you do your collision map. So it's just a matter of doing this little simple mapping function, and again it might be that instead of making it walkable, I use a different numbering system. And you can start using binary numbering systems for these. These numbers can be anything you want. Okay, so you could have a combination of parameters by having bit locations mean different types of properties for the tiles. Okay, but that's another story.